Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard brought to you by our sponsor, The Great Game of Business. I'm Lauren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the things we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
The Great Game of Business, Lauren. I love those guys. Welcome.
Are you going to do that every week from now on? I think they'll appreciate it.
You're awesome. What can I say? Yeah. Thank you for sponsoring us.
Gene, you're always writing and talking about stuff that matters to business owners. The big story of late, there's really just one, is the bank failures that started with Silicon Valley Bank.
I thought you were going to talk about the finale of The Last of Us, but okay. You want to talk about that? That's fine.
That's our other podcast, Gene.
Yeah, that's a great show.
The question I'm hearing a lot of owners talk about is whether they need to do anything differently now. You're kind of a conservative guy, as I recall, with your cash management and your banking. Have you gone to the mattresses yet, Gene?
So I'm talking to you now from a bunker underneath my home.
I was afraid of that.
I've got gold bars lined up along the walls, and I'm eating out of cans. So it's really, it's a few comments on the Silicon Bank.
Please.
First of all, in the past week, I spoke to an association of die casters for manufacturing. I spoke to an association of pool distribution suppliers, products, and I spoke to an association of companies that make wall and ceiling materials, so different industries, different whatever. So imagine, Lauren, a room of a few hundred people for each meeting, and they're all basically business owners, sitting out there. They're all from all over the country. And this whole Silicon Valley Bank thing is like zero impact on these guys. Do you know what I mean? And this is like the core of the country. I'm not saying it doesn't have any impact on some small businesses. I mean, obviously some in the tech, industry have reason to be worried, and some people that might be banking with, less well-managed banks like Signature or Republic Financial might also have issues as well. But this is not a systemic problem. There's no reason to panic. My advice though is kind of a few folds, and I'm writing about this on Monday for this week for the Inquirer. Talk. If you're nervous, talk to your banker. I talked to a few bankers already for this article, and they'll all give you the line while your money's completely safe with them. But it'll make you feel a little bit better. For all I know, they're bullshitting, but it should make you feel a little bit better.
Well, they're just saying that, but you don't think you think your money is safe with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, yes, but I think that we should all be diversifying our money.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we should have all of our money with one bank. I thought the $250,000 FDIC insurance it's not that much really, for a lot of businesses, because remember, that's for all accounts at a bank, not just for each account. So, you should be diversifying your cash within different banks. My advice, I sweep my money out that I don't need from my bank. I use Wells Fargo. That's a whole other story. But I sweep it out to like two money managers, and they have it invested like in mutual funds and treasury funds, which is exactly what, Silicon Valley Bank was putting it into treasuries. But the money that I'm putting into treasuries, I know I'm not going to need. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Silicon Valley Bank needed the money.
Right.
And, then one or two of their executives made statements in public about them like, oh no, we're having a liquidity issue because our money's tied up in treasuries. And then boom, there was a classic run on the bank. You know what I mean? That's really what caused this whole thing. So diversify your cash is what I'm telling you to do.
Well, you've already violated this suggestion, but a lot of people say that smaller businesses should bank at smaller banks.
So, okay, I agree with that. I'm wrong. I'm not kidding. I am in the wrong place. Because for the Inquirer article that's coming out this week, I interviewed like 3 CEOs of community banks, in Pennsylvania and Jersey.
Yep.
And I got off the phone with each of them saying like, why the hell do I have my money at Wells Fargo? I mean, no offense, but each one of them have this line, and it's a good question. They say like, Lauren, who do you bank with? Let me ask you, who do you bank with?
You're asking me.
Yeah, I'm asking you, who do you bank with?
PNC.
Okay. I didn't ask you who your bank is. I asked, who do you bank with?
PNC.
No, see what I mean? That's the question.
I understand where you're going.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do not have a relationship with anybody at PNC other than the ATM.
Right. And that's what the community bankers and independent bankers say, like, you have a relationship with those people. And it makes complete sense. Having said that, I do imagine that a lot of small businesses will be flocking to the big boys because they really are super capitalized and you feel a little bit
Well,
safer.
that's the thing. That's the question right now. There is a lot of money moving to the big banks, and there's
There
some
is.
concern, about contagion and whether smaller businesses should be thinking about doing the same, even though it runs against the advice they've been getting for years and years.
Yeah. I don't, like I said, I'm not saying that there might not be a couple of, badly run banks that also fall victim to this, this little wave that's going on now, but it's not a systemic issue. Diversify your cash, make sure you're not too exposed. I really think that 99% of small businesses in the country will not be significantly impacted by something like this. So I just, that's what I'm telling my clients. That's what I believe. And if I'm wrong, you can find me down in that bunker under my house. But I'm going to have that door padlocked and I'll with an M16 behind it.
One result of this thing is that I've heard of some services that I did not know existed previously. One of them is called the IntraFi network. Have you heard of that?
The IntraFi network is like, tell me if I'm incorrect here, but it's an additional layer of insurance on your savings, kind of like FDIC on steroids. Am I right there?
You're exactly right. What it does is, if I understand it correctly, it sweeps any money you have in your account beyond $250,000 every night into other banks so that you're fully protected, fully insured.
So it's funny that you bring that up because that was mentioned by a couple of the bankers that I spoke to. And, I was, juggling whether or not I was going to mention it in the piece I'm writing. But yeah, it's an extra level of security. And what they told me, the bankers that I spoke to, is the banks offer this and they charge you a little extra for the service, but it's like an extra layer of security that you have. That's above what the FDIC insures. The other thing also is I'm a treasurer for a nonprofit, and we have money in CDs that is not that we don't need it to be liquid. And we have our main bank is the trustee. They don't hold the money, and they've got it spread out in like CDs of like 10 other banks, and each of these CDs are less than $250,000. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of keeping my credit risk that way. Like I said, diversify your money. That's what you do. You'll be fine.
Let me ask you if you've heard of any of these other services. Forbes had a good story about some of the fintechs that are benefiting from this whole thing.
Yeah.
A big inflow. One is a San Francisco credit card startup called Brex. And apparently there were a bunch of tech startups that got caught because their credit cards stopped working. They were with Silicon Valley Bank. And that meant that, they were going to lose their website. They were going to lose all their software services that were tied to that credit card. So, the quickest thing they could do was throw it into this other credit card called Brex. You ever hear of it?
No, I haven't really worked with Brex, so I'm not really that familiar with it. I know it's like a digital bank, and there are quite a few digital banks that have popped up as well that provide equal number of services that compete against traditional banks. I would say, I am not averse at all to people looking at digital banks like Brex. And some of the others in that Ford article, because I saw that too. Because it is a digital bank. I mean, like so many, Capital One is for all intents and purposes a digital bank now. I mean, unless you want to go and see a banker in one of their coffee shops, everything is digital. So it doesn't concern me. But it's the same issues that you have with any bank. How well run and how well managed are they? Isn't it unbelievable, Lauren, that these guys they're supposed to be so smart. They went to the Ivy League college, got the MBA. They're at Silicon Valley. They're like smarter than everybody else. And like they put their money in treasuries, which anybody that took economics 101 knows that the value of treasuries goes down when interest rates go up. And they're putting all this money in treasuries. And you and I were talking 18 months ago that interest rates were going to be going up. This is not a secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just blows my mind that how our experts are dumbasses. Which again is why you have to diversify.
How do you explain that? Do you think it's because they were confident that if they got in trouble, there'd be the government there to back them up, and they just decided to go for every bit of interest rate return they could while they could?
You would have to ask them. I don't know, because it it's inconceivable to me. What I think they didn't see is what I wrote about back in December in the Guardian, which is that these interest rate increases, um, have an impact across all industries. The interest rate sensitive industries get impacted first. That's the tech companies, and so their financing dried up. So, it kind of seems like, okay, all this money they put on account, they're going to start accessing because they're going to really need it without financing. And I don't think that the banks did not foresee that coming, and they should have. They should have. It's supposed to be smarter than us, and they're not.
The other issue, and I'm curious if this has affected your thinking, is this is one of the banks that fought the regulation that was put in place by Dodd-Frank, and got a got a get out of jail free card a couple of years ago that appears to have made a difference. Does this make you think that maybe there are some regulations that should be in place?
The regulations are going to have to get looked at again. You do know that Barney Frank sits on the board of.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Signature.
It's kind of an embarrassment. I do think that and the Wall Street Journal had a good editorial about that last week, where they talked about how the banks that failed, it wasn't a regulation issue. Some of the Dodd-Frank's regulations got rolled back in 2018, and it lessened the regulations for regional banks like a Silicon Valley Bank and a Signature. But those banks made sort of bad decisions that they argued would have probably fallen under the radar screen of any regulator anyway.
Well, I think the issue is that they might have been stress tests.
They might have been, yeah.
I don't want to go too deep into this, but
yeah, I don't know if the stress test takes into consideration, though, a run on a bank like that to that extent. I don't know.
Well, they might have spotted the interest rate problem that you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's what's crazy about it, is that they're completely capitalized. I mean, they had the money; they were just in illiquid assets and super safe assets. It's not like the money was invested in crypto, and so it was just a bad investment decision, and they weren't expecting there to be a run.
All right, there's one other topic I want to hit with you today, and that is you took another pass at the 4-day work week, and I'm curious about that. You've written about it before. I think you've said to me that you think there's zero chance that this is going anywhere in this country, and yet you wrote a column last week kind of imploring business owners to give it another look.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're listening to us talking right now, I'm gonna pitch you right now in the 4-day work week. Remember,
my eyes are rolling already, Gene.
I know. And besides, you remember who this is coming from, right? It's not like I'm like the 4-day work week guy, but
you're not pitching this because you want your employees to get more sleep.
No. Oh, no. It's nothing like that. What it is I'm pitching it as an advantage to the employer, to the business owner. Okay.
Exactly.
So what is the big, putting banking issues aside, what is the biggest issue that we're all facing right now? Finding people, right? Inflation and finding people. Those are the two biggest things. And it's going to continue to be a big thing. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to recruit more employees to our business. What excites younger employees, younger millennials and Gen Z, not working and getting paid for it. That really excites them. They like that a lot. So the more benefits you can provide to them,
business owners tend to get less excited about that.
Yeah, right. So how can you have an employee that you hire that doesn't do any work, but you still pay them for it? That's what you want to get to. However, we can be smarter than that, because the younger generation, they get all romanced by this 4-day work week. Oh my God, 4 days. We only work 4 days and we take off 3. Isn't that great? This is so super. And a lot of business owners, my clients, they roll their eyes, at it. You have to roll their eyes. There's 2 things you can do to implement a 4-day work week. First of all, if you have hourly workers, and by the way, I'm only telling you this because this is what I'm seeing with some of my clients. And when I've been out and about speaking to people, I've been asking what they're doing. Some smart people are doing this already. For their hourly workers, they're changing the shifts. So they're giving the option to employees. You want to work a 10-hour shift for 4 days a week, still 40 hours. That's great. We'll accommodate you and let's do that. Boom, you've got a 4-day work week. So now when you are trying to attract people to your company, and the guy down the street doesn't offer a 4-day work week, we offer a 4-day work week. Yeah, they're 10-hour shifts, okay, fine. But it's a 4-day work week, and then you take 3 days off. I mean, Lauren, my daughter's a vet. She works for a national chain, vet centers. She works 3 12-hour shifts. She doesn't even work 40 hours, and she loves it. She's so happy. She has like 4 days off.
Those are long days, but I understand the appeal.
It's an option. I'm not saying you force it on people. You give it as an option so you can say to a prospective employee, you have this, you can do that. And by the way, you don't have to give it immediately. Say, you know what, you come and work for us. And if things are working out, say in 6 months or a year, you can be eligible for our 4-day work week program. How does that sound? That's an enticing thing. So for hourly workers and all that, you're trying to grab them. It's a marketing thing, man. And in some industries, it's already, healthcare workers have been doing this for years. Some, a lot of shift workers have been on this. It's not a crazy thought. It's a great way to attract employees because that's what they want to hear. Now, the salaried employees is a little trickier, but you know what? It all gets down to flexibility. So depending on their job description and what they do, you can have a quote unquote 4-day work week program as long as they're getting their shit done. So if they're assigned with certain tasks and certain deliverables and things they need to, they're responsible for doing, you can say to them, listen, call it what you want, but I don't care if you work 4 days or 80 hours this week. Just this is your job description. Make sure that this is getting done every week and it's up to you. And we're going to call that our 4-day work week program. It's just words. It's just words. And people want to hear it, especially these younger workers. So I say, take a step back and figure out if you can, jigger your schedules a little bit to accommodate this trend. And I think you can recruit more employees by doing that.
And you said you have some clients who are doing it and they're happy?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I can name 3 clients off the top of my head that are manufacturers and job shops that have switched their hourly workers to 10-hour workdays. And they're completely, these guys get in there at like 7 in the morning anyway, or 8 in the morning. I mean, it's not that big a deal. But it's been very enticing for workers to do those 10 hours and then turn around and then have 3 days off. And yes, you can, there's safety issues and, you got to be careful, mental health, all that kind of stuff. Fair enough. But it's certainly a doable thing. And I think if you can, before just rolling your eyes and saying this is another piece of woke bullshit, don't do that. Take a step back and think maybe I can make this work and then I can attract more people to my business, my biggest issue. So think about that because I think it could help.
Wow. Coming from Gene Marks.
I know.
Amazing.
Isn't that crazy? I know there's the law in Illinois. It's a whole other topic, Lauren, about that. Illinois just passed a law that's mandating employers to give PTO for any reason. We should talk about that next week because that's like, now I'm going to turn all Republican once we get into that. But that's another topic for another day.
I'm not familiar with that. Are you going to write about that?
Yeah, Google it. It's a law that now employers have to give mandated vacation and you don't have to give a reason why. So it's not like a sick time. Like in Philly, you got to give time off for sick time and then show proof that you were sick. In Illinois, you can just take the time off. I think it's 1 hour for every 40 hours worked with a maximum per year. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Why is it nuts?
Oh, you know what? Enough is enough. We'll talk about that next week, shall we?
Okay. Anything else you're working on that we should look for this week?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can look later on this week. I'll have the piece out in the Inquirer on the, on the Silicon Valley Bank and what some bankers are thinking about, about doing it. That's my big, thing so far. I'll probably be writing about the same in the Guardian as well. So that's what I'm working on.
All right. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, The Chicago Daily Herald, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. This episode was brought to you by The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses with open book management and employee ownership. You can find them at greatgame.com. Thank you again, Gene.
Lauren, we got it done.
Always a pleasure.
I'll see you next week.
Take care.